The year 2000 had come and gone, the world hadn't ended, and a new kind of war was brewing on our computer screens. For a generation of gamers, this wasn't just a game, it was a defining moment. This was Command & Conquer, Red Alert 2. We weren't just playing as soldiers, we were commanding entire armies. The slick, futuristic allies with their Prism tanks and Chrono Legionnaires, and the brutal, over-the-top Soviets with their Apocalypse tanks and mind-controlling Yuri. The factions were so distinct, so full of personality, that every match felt like a clash of titans. But it was more than just the units. It was the B-movie storytelling, the live-action cutscenes featuring a delightfully hammy cast, and the unforgettable soundtrack. Who could forget Frank Klepacki's iconic Hell March 2nd, getting your blood pumping before you even built your first barracks? The game was a masterclass in tone, perfectly blending serious strategy with a healthy dose of campy fun. Red Alert 2 wasn't just about building a base and crushing your enemy. It was about finding that perfect choke point to defend with a handful of engineers. It was the rush of a surprise Kirov airship attack, and the pure satisfaction of launching a nuclear missile. It was about shouting, "Kirov reporting," with your friends and knowing exactly what that meant. There's nothing quite like the feeling of stepping back into the campaigns of Red Alert 2. It's a game that defined a generation of RTS players, and playing it today is a pure, unadulterated shot of nostalgia. The campaigns, in particular, are a masterclass in how to make a real-time strategy game's story feel epic, ridiculous, and endlessly fun. The Allied campaign starts with a bang, as the Soviet invasion of the US is in full swing. You're thrust into the role of a fledgling commander, and the stakes are high from the get-go. What makes this campaign so memorable is the progression of Allied technology. You start with GIs and tanks, but as the war escalates, you get to unleash some truly iconic weaponry. Tanya, the original super unit. Her one-liners and ability to single-handedly destroy entire bases with C4 were a highlight of every mission she was in. You felt like an unstoppable force when you had her on the field. Prism tanks, the Allies' answer to Soviet armor. There was nothing more satisfying than lining up a bunch of Prism tanks and watching their beams combine into a single devastating ray of light that vaporized an enemy base. Chrono Legionnaires. These time-displacing soldiers were a late-game game-changer. Teleporting across the map, erasing enemy units from existence, and sneaking into bases to take out key structures was an art form. The weather control device, the ultimate superweapon. The visual of a massive lightning storm rolling across the map, obliterating everything in its path, was pure, high-voltage spectacle. The missions themselves were a wild ride. From defending New York City and the Statue of Liberty to a frantic race against time to capture a psychic emitter in St. Louis, each mission felt distinct. The cut scenes, with their over-the-top acting and B-movie charm, were the glue that held it all together. General Carville's booming voice and the slick yet sarcastic demeanor of Agent Eva were as much a part of the experience as the gameplay itself. If the Allied campaign was about high-tech defense, the Soviet campaign was about overwhelming, brutal offense. Playing as the Soviets felt different, powerful, and aggressive. Kirov airships, the slow, lumbering giants of the sky. The sheer dread of seeing a fleet of these blimps on the horizon, knowing their bombs would obliterate everything, was a core part of the Soviet experience. The catchphrase "Kirov reporting" is etched into the minds of every player. Apocalypse tanks, the ultimate Soviet killing machine. Heavily armored, with 2 main cannons and anti-air missiles, these things were a wrecking ball. Building up a dozen of them and rolling into an Allied base was the most satisfying form of destruction imaginable. Tesla coils, the iconic defensive structure. The sound of their crackling electricity and the sight of them frying enemy infantry was a perfect blend of style and function. Yuri, the charismatic, mind-controlling villain who started as your advisor. His psychic abilities and creepy demeanor were a constant source of intrigue. His rise to power and eventual betrayal were a fantastic part of the story. The Soviet missions were a showcase of pure might. You got to flatten landmarks like the White House, blow up the Pentagon, and even assault a fortified Allied base in the mountains. The final mission, Red Revolution, was a classic build up your army and crush the enemy scenario that was the perfect culmination of the campaign. The cheesy propaganda-filled briefings, and the menacing presence of Premier Romanov made you feel like you were truly fighting for the motherland.
If the lovely Lieutenant Sophia is finished pushing for promotion,
Looking back, what truly makes the Red Alert 2 campaign so nostalgic isn't just the gameplay. It's the whole package. It's the quirky FMV cutscenes, the perfectly fitting soundtrack by Frank Klepacki, and the wonderfully ridiculous units and story. The game never took itself too seriously, which allowed it to be creative and fun without being bogged down by realism. Every mission had its own memorable moment. The desperate defense of a city, the clever use of a new unit, or the eureka moment when you finally figured out the right strategy to overcome a seemingly impossible obstacle. Red Alert 2 was more than a game. It was a series of unforgettable moments, and its campaigns are a testament to the brilliant, zany world that Westwood Studios created. Based on Steam charts and community information, here's how Red Alert 2 is seen these days. Red Alert 2, which includes the Yuri's Revenge expansion, has a dedicated but relatively small player base on Steam. It's not a top-tier title in terms of concurrent players, but it consistently draws an average of over 1,000 players each month. The game saw a significant surge in players when it was officially released on Steam in March 2024, reaching an all-time peak of over 6,500 players. Since then, the numbers have settled into a stable, long-tail trend. While Red Alert 2 itself is not sold as a standalone title on Steam, it is available as part of the Command & Conquer: The Ultimate Collection bundle, or through an EA Play subscription. This is the primary official way to acquire and play the game on the platform. The game is far from dead. The community is active and relies heavily on community-made patches and clients, particularly CNCnet. This fan-made client addresses compatibility issues with modern operating systems like Windows 10 and 11, and provides a way for players to easily connect and play multiplayer online. There is also a vibrant modding scene, with popular mods like Mental Omega continuing to draw a significant number of players. User reviews for the Steam release are very positive, with a high percentage of positive feedback. This indicates that while the player numbers are modest, those who are playing the game on Steam are generally happy with the experience. The game is still highly regarded as a classic real-time strategy title.
Well, it's not your life that's on the line out here.
This game gave us more than just missions to complete. It gave us memories. It gave us a sense of power, a sense of strategy, and a sense of humor that is rarely matched. Red Alert 2 is a piece of gaming history that, for many of us, will always hold a special place in our hearts. A game that proved the biggest and most fun conflicts happen not in reality, but in the palm of our hands. And for that, we salute you, Command & Conquer. Red Alert 2. If you also feel nostalgia for Red Alert 2, leave a comment and share a pleasant memory with this game. I wish you all the best. White Reaper out.